Welcome back to another thrilling and exciting episode of the YZ80, 1980 YZ80. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to attempt to replace these bearings. I'm going to do it with the freezer where you freeze the bearings. They say an hour, but a couple hours is probably better. So you're freezing the new bearings. And then you place the case in an oven. I've had luck at 220. You may be able to go higher, I don't know. But 220 seems to expand the cases, and with the frozen bearing, it just almost drops in. But this is a special case here. I don't want to replace these. All these bearings are really, really good. They're in great shape. There's no reason to replace all these transmission bearings. I just don't want to go through all this. I mean, this bearing is actually in great shape, but I'm going to put new ones in. I want new bottom end bearings. So it's just a little bit of a problem in case these guys want to fall out in the oven. So I'm going to have to, I tried to tape this off, but the oil on the cases is keeping the tape from sticking. So I'm going to just time it and do a little at a time, bring it up to temperature slowly. Hopefully these don't want to come out, and that this one doesn't want to come out, but I'll use the puller. And so I'm going to try and time it where I get it just loose enough where the puller will pull it out fairly easily, but these will stay in place, and then we'll try to install. So I'm going to work on getting these old bearings out, and then we'll come back and I'll tell you how I did it. Well, that was easy. So this bearing did not want to come out with my puller, but I took the torch and heated up around the bearing area there, and I didn't really overdo it, but I didn't just 10 seconds, probably 30 seconds around there, and then it just came right out. So there we go. So the oven approach worked also. I had this in the oven for 220 for, I don't know, 15 minutes. Oh, and it's still hot. And the bearing came out rather easily. A couple of sharp slides on the slide hammer, and it started moving and popped it out. So either way will work. Just heat the cases and pull the bearings. All right, with the bearings out, there's a small hole here that I always like to make sure is open. I'm sure that's an oiling hole. And clean up this as much as you can. You want that bearing to just slide right in if it can. I've also got some WD-40 that I'm going to use as like a little bit of a lubricant. This one's already done. I put it in the oven, 220, and I froze the bearing. I ended up having to use a little persuasion, but not much, and that's why I've got these blocks set up so that I've got substantial base here to do a little pounding on that bearing. And so I set this up prior to it going in the oven. So let's put this one in the oven, and the bearing's been freezing overnight, and we'll just put this bearing in, and then we're going to start working on cleaning up all this case, all this gasket material. Just get it good and clean, and then I'll show you how I'm going to paint it. This is in pretty good shape, so I'm not going to really have to do a whole lot. Just kind of sand these rough edges, get the seal out. And that seal is going to come out easy, just like so. I had to take some 150 paper here, and there's some scratches. There were some deep scratches, and you can see these are very, very deep. And there's really no getting those out. I mean, I'm sure I could. I've got the wheel out there. I probably could take those out, but then you're going to have a disformed look to it. And most of the other stuff is going to look like a casting mark. And I've got almost everything else out. So, you know, it can't be perfect, but it's going to look perfect. You're just going to have to really, really look down there to see a couple of these scratches. So, getting real anal here. So we're going to then step it up to all the way up to about, I don't know, 600 grit, maybe 800 grit, and then that's ready to go. So we did 150, 220, which is roughly twice 150 is 300. I went 220, so double 220, and you'd probably have 440. Didn't have any of that. I probably could have gone 500, but I went 320 because this is you're going to see this. This is in your face. The cases don't have to be that particular. So 320, and I'm going to probably go 500 and then 800, but you can see after 320 it's starting to really shine. And I'm going to have to do a little bit of priming, I would think, on this. A little self-etching primer, and then primer over that, and then the black over that. And there it is, all ready for paint. I give it a really good wash, but there's really nothing to do now but just paint this. And I can tell that this was painted at the factory off, so I'm going to go ahead and paint this off. But I'm not sure about that yet. I got all the gasket material off. I cleaned up the little holes for the dowels. I cleaned up these shafts a little bit, being very careful not to get anything in these bearings or in the inner workings here. So now I've got to prepare the outside just by scuffing it a little bit, and again keeping anything from getting inside. So I'm going to scuff, and then we'll go from there. It's all lacquer thinnered down, all wiped down, all clean, ready. And the important parts are taped off. Now I was going to put this side cover on, but it covers up all this, so I'm just going to go ahead and spray it. Now we're just going to cover. That's all we want to do. We don't want to put a whole bunch of mils on it. It's already black. We just want it to cover. So let's get it to the booth. Okay, so we're going to put a little of the just cheapo just a mist. And that's almost dry right now. So there we go. That's it. Let that dry. And you can see how it's just, I mean, this is just a case, okay? So there's no reason to get completely unreal here. So just enough to kind of give a little texture, sink into that aluminum just a bit. And now we'll just top coat. believe it or not, but this is a tremendous amount of work to get these cases clean and beautiful. And as you can see, it's going to look really, really good. Mr. Yamaha YZ80. I actually want to ride it, but I don't think I will, because it's just, you know, you put all this work into it and you just can't go ride it. You'll just get it dirty, and then it won't shine like this. And it's just got the head laying on there, or the cylinder. And as you remember, we sent it out and had it completely rebored and honed with new piston. It's going to be really, really, really nice. So next I'm going to take a look at the head, and I've got some more cleaning to do. You know, I've got to get in there, get all that up. But as you can see, it's really going to look good. But look at the difference. You just can't. Let's see if I can get this on here. There we go. I mean, you got that, and then you got that. So there's no way I could just put that head on there. Of course, I never would, but kind of gives you an idea of what the difference is from like being totally restored and just cleaning up the original paint. Taking a little break. We've got a little place here that's set aside, and look at this, out in the middle of nowhere. Little stairs, little windbreak. End of the world. You could come here. Yeah, look at this. Interesting, huh?
Oh, I'm gonna go cook them. You gotta make the most of it. Wherever they're going, I'm cooking. I understand their dilemma,
and it's quite the deal here.
We're a group. No, we're gonna eat.
And this is the plaque. And it's just interesting. Yeah, so here we are. We're stopped, having a little meal. Chico just handed me the 2 gears, and that's these 2 right here. See how there's a tooth missing out of that? And there's 1 missing out of that. So it kind of set me back a week waiting for the 2 gears, which I got off eBay. And they're right there and right there, brand new. So I've got that in. Now I'm going to go ahead and start to load the case. I've got to tell you, I've had more problem putting this case together than I've ever had. And the reason being is I put it together and I could not get this output shaft to turn. And I thought, oh, okay, maybe I put another washer in. And Chico said, no, you know, you're an idiot. You know, that's what Chico said. He said, well, what are you? Are you from Shingletown? Yeah, he's looking away because he knows he got in my face over this, spending too much time on this crankcase. But what had happened was, when I put this side in the oven, when I put these cases in the oven, the bearing that I wasn't going to replace, which is the output shaft bearing, it's fine, it's good. It actually moved. I mean, when you put these in the oven, these bearings will just free up. They'll fall out in the bottom of the oven, at some point. And so it moved in. So every time I screwed these screws down right here and put the cases together tight, this would just be tight. It wouldn't move. Now it's free to go. Everything's fine. So we've got that together. And I've got this individual over here that just keeps rubbing it in my face. He told me 100 times, check everything out. So I just wasted a whole afternoon. But anyhow, it's together. So now we'll move on to probably getting all the clutch and everything put in here, the piston and cylinder, and then followed by the head. Right? Yeah. Everything's in underneath the side cover here. The clutch. This was here. And I ordered a new screw, and I thought I ordered a washer. The washer is kind of like not available anymore. I don't think this is going to make a big difference, so I'm leaving it on. But everything else is torqued, and it's time to put on the piston. And I was able to find a brand new Honda piston and ring set. So we'll put this thing together and mount it on the end of the connecting rod. I'm getting ready to put the piston on, but I always like to show the plating because it's so much fun. I mean, yeah, it's fun. Once you get into it, it is fun. It's tough to get started, but you can see I've got those black, and they have that, you know, that look of the OEM Yamaha stuff. So that's for the side cover. And the piston's in, cylinder's on. Slides real nice. And I did the checked the ring gap in the piston, or I mean in the cylinder, and everything is right on perfect. So now we've got some more plating that's done. I did the kickstand or the kickstarter, the shift lever, the front sprocket. So we're getting closer, and we can put this side cover on here in just a few minutes. And the engine's in, and there's a couple of things. I'm not going to go completely into it, but this nut here, I had to grind a little bit. I kind of squashed the threads on the crank end, so it lost a couple of threads. I retapped it. I've got this on. I torqued it to about 10 or 12 foot-pounds, and I put some Loctite on it. Now I'm hoping that that's going to hold it. Otherwise, I'm going to have to try and figure out something, maybe a deep nut that goes in and then a washer. I'm not sure, but I think it's okay. But you know, I want these sorts of problems to come up, because most people just make it look like everything's perfect and nothing goes wrong. But there you have it. So the engine's in. I'm going to figure out if I've got any brackets that go on to these bolts before I torque them, and then I'll torque the engine in and we'll go from there. More and more plating. Now I don't know if you can see, this has got a little bit of a aged look to it, where this is just pure blue chromate. That's a little customized there. This is an arm, and I'm going away from the black paint because it just looks so much better, you know, in the black chromate. And a lot of the stuff was black chromate. I believe this was black chromate, but these, I think this is black chromate, but I think these are painted. So I'm probably going to paint these two, and I'm going to probably chromate these. And the Kickstarter and the shift lever just look beautiful. The springs for the brakes and so forth. And this stuff's ready to go in. There it is in the bath. Each kind of batch here is going to be a different color. It's either going to be black, blue chromate, which is like silver, like out of the box new, and then an aged, kind of a yellow chromate. I've said it before that the bikes age, the bolts age with time. That was probably a silver before. That was probably just regular blue chromate, just a bright silver. And with age, it turns green. And now some of the stuff was yellow chromate, but which this may be. And all this is all of that gold color. And it's just really hard to say whether this was this color. Because if you look at NOS stock or new old stock, when you put in a part number and it's gold like this on your bike, it's silver most of the time, brand new. So I just like to go back to what it would be like if it was brand new, never ridden, but 25, 35, 50 years old. I think that's cool. So these are going to go back to this color of gold. This is as good a time as any to figure out the brakes. I didn't like the way that these aftermarket shoes put the lever. It seemed like these were not the right size. Okay, and so I went ahead and I found some OEM, NOS, Yamaha shoes online, and sure enough, I'm getting about 90 millimeters, and when I look at this one, there is quite a gap. So it tells me there may, that these may work. These may work in every situation, when you can't find, genuine Yamaha stuff. But I think that just that little bit is going to make the lever be in a kind of more forward position. And so I'm going to go ahead and mount these and see what happens. So I found the old ones, and when I measured them, they had a little gap there too. It's not a lot, but I'm going to show you the lever. And these are right at 90. But with the OEM shoes, that's all the lever movement I get before it engages, and that's exactly what I'm looking for. So those aftermarkets did not work out for me. And I got all this set up, and in order to do that, I needed to install the chain, I needed to adjust the chain, and then torque down the rear axle. And that gave me the proper angle, and this brake is perfect. I'm missing this little rubber snubber down here, but this is perfect. And that's it. That's all the play. And look at that. I know it's good because I've got just a little bit of the thread coming out. I know you've seen dirt bikes that have all this thread coming out here. That's probably because they're putting in an aftermarket set of shoes which were smaller. And since they were smaller, this rod would have been probably down here before it engaged, which means I'd have a whole lot of threaded rod coming out of here. This is the way it should be. All OEM, all perfect, and it just feels beautiful. Yeah, so we just keep going. Cleaning up the intake, I noticed a crack. So I've got my plastic welder out. We're going to weld that up. The airbox is all cleaned up. I've got the rubber boot. It's all looking beautiful, like new. Now, I had a crack right in here, and I used my plastic welder, and there it is. That's not going to crack again. And there it is, all installed. All right, this is a review of DC Plastics. Now what I'm doing here is I'm doing a 1980 YZ80. So we're at the point where we're going to put plastics on it, so I thought it's a good time to do a review. So here we go. This seems like a really good time to end this segment. I've got another video that I made of installing all these plastics, and I can tell you one thing, they're not the easiest thing. And well, you'll just have to look at the video on the plastics. So anyhow, we're to the point now where the last video is going to be just a few odds and ends and showing the restoration of the tank and the seat. So until the next video, we will look forward to seeing you on the next one.